Everyone, welcome back to cold and snowy upstate New York. Spent all day yesterday shoveling and snow blowing snow. So as you can see, I'm back with the B44, swinging arms in, nice new NJB shocks came. Now, one of the things that Tim the customer wanted, apart from the new forks and what have you, was this is going to be a sort of off-road type bike, which is why we're putting the 21-inch front rim in. And he got himself a nice single saddle. He wants it so that I can either have the single saddle or the double saddle, depending on whether his wife's on the back, and he wants me to build a little rack. But the other thing he wanted was trials type footrests, like I have on my trials bike, and I get them from Sammy Miller. They're the Delta Wing ones, or the plain ones. So he wanted them like that, and I thought to myself, well, yeah, but that means welding things on and all sorts of stuff to the frame and making different mountings up, which I decided I didn't want to do because I would like to leave it reasonably standard. But I did think, well, the actual footrest part on the frame, you know, I've got lots of them kicking around. They're easy enough to find, easy enough to make actually. So I've decided to utilise the mounting and the footrest inner and then build a part around it. So let me take you through to the fabrication side of this emporium, and I'll show you how I did this. What we're starting with is the original BSA footrest, which is a pretty simple thing. Rubber goes on it, and it goes on one of these things which is bolted into wherever on the frame with a bolt. So it just goes up like that, goes down like that. But Tim wanted the ones with the serrated edge, just like we have on the trials bike. So I thought, first of all, that what I would do is make the larger footrest with a serrated part, cut this off here and weld it on there. But then I thought to myself, no, that's not going to be very strong. The Sammy Miller ones, for instance, have a piece of plate around the bottom, and the cast ones often have a web cast into them. So then I thought to myself, well, why not use the whole thing and just build a piece to go around it? So this is what I came up with. As you can see, here's the original footrest. So it'll just go straight onto there, onto the frame, boom, boom. Everything works as the original one did. But now we have it nice and wide, and instead of being a rubber which can get slippery in the wet, it's got a serrated edge, and this whole thing now is very rigid. Tidied it up, of course, made it look like that, and I don't know if you can tell, but the centre part is below the serrations. And then put some nice big holes in so that any mud and slop will go through there. And there we have our off-road footrest. So how are we going to make one? Well, I had 4 of these to make, so I thought to myself, I'll actually make a fixture instead of just beating the living daylights out of a piece of flat with a large hammer. So I did this at the weekend, so I was just rummaging around with what I could find. So I wanted to make this 1.5 inches, and as luck would have it, I had some 1.5 inch tube. Another piece of 1.5 inch tube was welded on here so that we can form round it. What would be better would be 1.5 inch box section, because then you'd have a nice flat side. And what I had to do at the top where I'm going to fold over was put a piece of 1.5 inch square plate on, so that when I fold it over it has something flat instead of that curve to be worked against. So there's that. Then we need something to form it in. Now, as luck would have it, 1.5 inch diameter, 1 inch thick, not 1 inch thick, 1/8 inch thick flat to make the actual footrest with, gives me 1 3/4 inches, and a 2 inch square box section with 1/8 inch walls is of course 1 3/4 inches, so that was perfect for that. So you see I've got a little mark there. What you do is you get yourself a piece of flat, cut to the appropriate length. I'll show you that in a minute. You would mark the middle, pop it on, get that middle there, Make sure it's straight. If you were doing a lot of these, I'd probably put another couple of pieces on like that just as a guide, so that went on exactly flat and straight. Then I put a little mark on this. That gets marked up. Then you put it in the press on that, and bingo, you end up with this down inside there. So it springs back a little bit. So when you've got it pressed in, I've made this also, you see, just that height there, so I'm going to press it right down and it goes to the base there, so I can really hold it nice and flat. Then I take it out of here, and while it's still in there, I heat this up here, fold it over and heat that over and fold it over, and then it's perfectly formed. So that's the plan. Let's go and make the next one. First thing we've got to do is find the length of piece we want, because it's got to go all the way around that and then fold over at the top. Now this is one of those times where we're going to have to take into account the thickness of the metal, because we're going to have, it's going to be inside. That's going to be the length inside, so it's actually going to go around that there. So we're going to add in 1/8 for the bottom and 1/8 for this fold at the top. Now pay attention here, because it's very technical the way you find the length to go around there and meet in the middle. Are you watching? You put this down on a nice light background, like so. You make a mark, and then you very carefully roll it over, making sure it doesn't slip or anything. Oops. And you make another mark, and then you measure between the two marks, which is 7 inches. Then we've got 1.5 inches here, so that's 8.5 inches, plus we're adding the 2/8, which is another quarter, so that's 8 3/4 inches in total. But we don't actually want it to meet in the middle. Let me write that down. 8 3/4 inches. 8 inches, 7 inches, 8.5, 3/4. 8 3/4. But we don't want it to meet in the middle. We're actually wanting it to meet on either side of this. So it actually wants to be 5/8 less than that. So that's minus 5/8. So 3/4 is 6/8. So it's going to be 8 1/8 of an inch. So let's mark that. 8 1/8. And then we'll also mark the centre, which is going to be 4 1/16. I am right, aren't I? Yes, of course you are. So we'll mark that, and we'll mark that. Doesn't really matter if you fraction out. And what I'm going to do while I'm over here is just mark that there. Oops, this sharp is a bit on the thick side. A bit like me. Tell you what, we'll mark this side to show us where our centre is. Right, let me go and cut this, and then we'll put it in the former. Now I've actually moved one of the ceiling lights, so I've just rigged up a temporary light. I hope you can see this alright. So here we have our little forming box. There's our mark for the centre. There's our mark for the centre there. Put it on, get that lined up. Get it centred there. As I say, a good thing would be a little strip on either side to just hold that in place. And this goes in again with our centre, and get the whole thing underneath there. And what I'm going to do is just come down to hold that. Now I get everything lined up, making sure of course it's going to fit inside the little box. Just making sure that square with that. And fingers crossed, seeing as you're watching, we just go like that. Isn't that clever? As I say, this centerpiece is just the right height to make this, so we're going to press it all the way down onto the plate. Make sure we form that curve quite perfectly. And that's it. There we go. Now we're actually going to put it in the vise and keep it in here because it holds nicely, and then we'll be able to batter that over. So let's do that. Here we are set up in the vise. As I say, we'll leave it in here because it's easy to work with. I've also put a piece under there so that it's tight down there as well as being held in the vise, so things aren't going to move. So let's see if we can get this lit without setting the whole place on fire. Whoops. I'm a bit cack-handed here because I've got the camera over that side, so bear with me. Well, you always have to bear with me, don't you? Okay, so here we go. And there we are. Hopefully, what are we doing with it? Should be somewhere close to being. Look at that. It's maybe, oh, I don't know. In technical terms, a bit out. So we'll just ease a little bit off that, and that's going to go on there. So we'll let that cool down. This is how it looks when you knock it out. As you see, it springs back a little bit, so the form comes out easily enough. Now then, a bit messy over here. What we're going to do, as I say, is we're going to stick that on there. So obviously we only want it to go there, so we're going to cut this end off. What we're also going to do with this end is just, we'll cut it off straight, but then we'll just put a tiny little curve in it because we want it to fit closely into there. So let's see. We want it to go to there. To go on just to there. So we're going to take off. Ooh, the end's fallen off my ruler. Wonder where that went. We are going to take off 3/4. That to go just there. The reason I'm checking is because I don't think I took 3/4 off the other one. Well, it's 3/4 to the very end, so it's 5/8 from this flange. So let's pop there in my second rate vise, and there it is, Michael. 5/8 from there. I know why I've lost the end of this. Every time I bend over, everything falls out of my pockets. It's a bit of a pain. Right, thinking about due a new hacksaw blade also. Come on, vise. There's that. Let me see if the vise is in focus there. Yes, we're looking pretty good. Now, as you can see there, we touch on the sides, but not at the end. So what we're going to do is just put a little bit of a move you back. Maybe I'll buy one of those hero things, but for the moment, as I've mentioned before, I'm using my my good Nikon camera and lenses, so we don't want any of this stuff on. Plus I haven't got my safety glasses on. I've got my ordinary glasses on. There they are. Well, this video is really full of interesting stuff, isn't it? More to come off. You know, I'm not happy. I'm going to move you and come back. Here we are, back again, safe and sound. And there you can see I've rounded that off so it now fits in there better. So what we're going to do now is we're going to clamp this up in the vise, get it to a nice position so that we are a little below the lip there for when we put the serrations in, and then we'll bronze this into place. And of course it just struck me it didn't matter that I was that fraction out, because we're going to clamp it up onto that anyway. So let's sure everything is straight. It's a little below, that's a little below. How does it look from your end? Excuse me. What have we got here? Got a 16th down there, and a 16th there. Okay, that should be just nice. Grip that up tightly. Safety glasses off. Flat that off. Whoops. Tinted glasses on. forgot my little green screen. Never mind. You've seen all this before. And there we are. Pop! And I'll also let you know it's tea time. So this is going to be held in abeyance until tomorrow. So I'll see you then. Back again. 27 degrees below freezing this morning. Okay, we've got this bronzed up now, so curvy bits to the top, we want to do this part. Where are we? This part here. So, make them all the same. We're 1 inch from there. And we're 1/2 inch down from there. So that's going to go around there like that. And that's going to go like that. Now it would be very nice to have a bandsaw to cut this. Then we could just put it on and go zzz. But I don't have a bandsaw. So what I'm going to do it with is a big cutting disc in the 4.5 inch grinder. So let me put it in the vise, and again, make sure you're far enough back to be safe, because I don't want you getting sparks in your eyes and suing me. And I'm also going to wear, look, my snazzy new gloves, because I buy these and I forget to wear them, and then at the end of the day I'm absolutely black and my fingernails are horrible. So I'm going to try and remember. Anyway, let's move. I've moved the camera around a little bit. You're still a longish way away, but I think you'll be safe over there. So first of all, I'm going to cut down at this end, and then I'm going to do the sides. It's nearly Christmas. I think I'm going to buy myself a vise. I've already broken the sort of fixed threaded part that this goes into once and replaced it. we have it. Be quiet. And there we have it. So I'll dress it up a bit, and then we'll go on to the next stage, which is drilling these holes. I just thought on, while this is over here in the vise and I've got the grinder, I might as well put the little serrations in. Oh, look at that, I've got holes. Shows you where the sparks go. There we go. Now we'll drill some holes. Last job is to put the holes in. So got a couple of parallels in there. Then I'm drilling it through from the bottom so I can use the straight edges here. Saves me messing around trying to chop this up. Now, seeing as I don't have multiple cameras, I can't have you seeing the drilling and the DRO at the same time. But what I'm going to do, the beauty of this thing, is I can just get this set. Just unlock the table there. Get this set in the centre. Like that. And down at the end. Like that. Lock it up so it doesn't move that way, then we can just track along, and on the DRO I can zero that, and then I can just wind it along and get the holes in a straight line and equally spaced out. So we'll put some cutting oil in. Better put it in gear, I suppose. didn't I? There we go. How is that come close? There's our holes. All I've got to do is dress them up, and that's all finished. That's all for today. Probably the next video, which is going to be after Christmas, will be the next stage on the 300cc conversion. We'll take the liner out of the B25 barrel and start getting things sorted there. So enjoy your Christmas, and I'll probably see you between Christmas and New Year, but if not, if I get snowed in a bit, or if I get too convivial at Christmas and don't feel like coming out, I will see you in the new year. So enjoy the holidays. Bye now.